And then he tells to the bird, "Teach us, sprite or bird, what sweet thoughts are thine? I have never heard praise of love or wine that panted forth a flood of rapture so divine." So he says, "Oh bird," he calls it sprite or bird. Sprite means spirit, spirit or bird, "please teach us, because I am at a loss trying to understand who you are, what you are. So you please tell us." It's a request, it's an earnest plea to the bird. And he tells the bird to please tell him, "What sweet thoughts are thine? What is it that induces such beautiful music? Tell me, what is there in your mind? What do you think of when you are singing? I have never heard praise of love or wine that panted forth a flood of rapture so divine." Now, as far as human beings are concerned, when is a human being most happy? Either he should be in love or he should be intoxicated, he should be drunk. Those are the two occasions on which a human being is very happy. And so he says, "I have heard many songs that people sing when they are in love or when they are intoxicated, but never have I heard any of them singing such a flood of rapture so divine." Rapture is joy, unalloyed happiness. So no human song can match the beauty of your song. Now he tries to give all kind of comparisons, the kind of songs that he knows, he has heard, and he tries to keep them on par with the bird song and see whether any of those come close to the bird's song. Chorus hymeneal. Chorus hymeneal. Hymen is the god of marriage and wedding. So chorus hymeneal, wedding songs. Triumphal chant. Triumphal chant is a song that celebrates the victory. Triumph is victory. So triumphal chant is a song of victory, to commemorate somebody's victory. So whether it's a wedding song or a triumphal chant, matched with thine would be all but an empty want. A thing wherein we feel there is some hidden want. So even the best wedding song, even the best song of victory doesn't come close to you. It would be empty. They all would sound empty. Want is an empty boast. It would all sound an empty boast compared to your sweet music, and they all seem to be lacking in something. A thing wherein we feel there is some hidden want means something is wanting, something is lacking. So no human song can come close to yours. And then again he repeats this question: what is it that makes you so happy? What objects are the fountains of thy happy strain? What fields or waves or mountains? What shapes of sky or plain? What love of thine own kind? What ignorance of pain? So a series of questions. He's so overwhelmed. He's so keen to know what is happening to this bird. How come it is singing so beautifully? And then he asks a non-stop series of questions. What objects are the fountains of the happy strain? Means what is the source of your happiness? What prompts you to sing like this? So he's giving many options. Fields or waves or mountains? So is it the side? Now you are a bird that flies high in the sky, high above in the sky. So when you look down, you might see many things. You might see fields, waves of the ocean, mountains. Is it any of these that inspires you? What shapes of sky or plain? So is it the sky, the colorful evening sky, the beautiful early morning sky? Is it that inspires you? Or the plain land, the stretches of beautiful grassy meadows? Is that what inspires you? What love of thine own kind? Or are you in love with another bird like you? Are you in love with somebody? In the sense, thine own kind, in the sense, he's asking this skylark whether he is in love with another skylark. Is it that? What ignorance of pain? Is it because you haven't experienced pain at all? So can that be the reason why you are so happy? With thy clear keen joyance, languor cannot be. Shadow of annoyance never came near thee. Thou lovest but never knew love's sad satiety. So he says, with your kind of happiness, the kind of your clear keen joyance, happiness, languor cannot be. Languor is sadness, gloominess. laziness. So he says, I'm sure that you wouldn't have experienced any of such feelings of languor and shadow of annoyance. I'm sure you have never experienced anything annoying in your life. Even a shadow of annoyance would mar you, would kind of blemish the beauty of your music. I'm sure you have not experienced any of these things. And thou lovest, I'm sure maybe you have loved, but you have never known love's sad satiety. Satiety is when you get cloyed with something. Now, you like sweets, but then somebody gives you a big box full of sweets. What will happen after some time? In the beginning, you will enjoy eating the sweet, and then as you eat and eat more and more, you get cloyed, and you can't eat a single piece of sweet. So that is the experience of getting cloyed, C-L-O-Y-E-D. So that is what is called satiety. Being too satisfaction reaching its uppermost limit, you cannot enjoy it anymore. After that, if somebody gives you that thing, what's going to happen is you are going to throw up. That's what's going to happen next. So it's the limit to which you can experience pleasure. So he says, maybe you have loved, but I'm sure you never knew love's sad satiety. Because in the case of human beings, we know how it is. You love a person, you do anything to be with that person, but once you get that person and make the person your own, the journey kind of, it goes downhill. You have lost the thrill. You find fault with everything and anything that the person does, and your love loses all its luster and its romance, and then you get tired of the whole thing. So that's why he says, you maybe have fallen in love, but you have not experienced love's sad satiety that we human beings experience. Now, if you take the personal life experience of Shelley too, we know that all this is true. If you read his biography, you know what he's talking about. Waking or asleep, thou of death must deem things more true and deep than we mortals dream. Or how could thy notes flow in such a crystal stream? So he says, another thing that always worries human beings is the thought of death. Maybe when I say this, you might think, and you might say that I don't think of my death, but there might be people who think of death and think of the responsibilities that have to be fulfilled before you die, that you have to take care of your family, you have to take care of your children, what will happen to them if you die, and all those things. So here he says, I am sure that you, the Skylark, definitely knows something about death that we human beings do not know. That is why even the thought of death doesn't worry you. Waking or asleep, thou of death must deem. Deem here means know. Things more true and deep than we mortals dream. Or how could thy notes flow in such a crystal stream? So if you had any worries about death, about perishing tomorrow, you wouldn't be able to sing in such a crystal clear stream. So I am sure you know the secret of death, or maybe you are immortal. So waking or asleep, thou of death must deem things more true and deep than we mortals dream. And then this next stanza, which I am going to read, is immensely popular. It is often quoted. You must have heard of it before. This is how it goes. We look before and after and pine for what is not. Our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. Our sweetest thoughts are those that tell of saddest thought. So here he says that human beings have this tendency to always worry. Either you look before or you look after. Either you worry about the past of what has happened, you keep regretting of the things that you could have done in a different way, of the mistakes that you committed, of what others did to you. You never forget the past. And or the other thing is, you keep worrying about the future, what's going to happen in future. What happens when you waste your time thinking of the past and the future is that you forget to live your present. So that's why we look before and after and pine. Pine here is yearn or long for what is not. You are always worried about what is not there. The past is also gone, the future has not yet arrived, but you're always worried about what is not. And in effect, we forget to enjoy our present. We carry all the bitterness of the past, and we look into the future with so much of anxiety that you are never happy. Our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. So even when we laugh sincerely, there is some kind of a pain hidden beneath it. Like for instance, when do we laugh most sincerely and most spontaneously? When you see somebody falling down. That is when you know that it is not right to laugh when something happens to somebody, but automatically that is the first reaction that most of us indulge in. We immediately laugh out aloud. We kind of control ourselves and then rush to help the person. So that's one small example. That's not what Shelley means. He says that even in the most sincere laughter, there is some kind of a pain involved. Human beings can never, most human beings, of course there are some human beings who are so innocent that they can always be happy, but most human beings always have something bickering them, something irritating them, and even their laughter is not wholehearted. Our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. Our sweetest songs are those that tell of saddest thought. So again, when you take the case of the music composed by human beings, often we find that the most popular songs, which most of us like, are songs that are very sad songs, songs that speak of unrequited love, of memories of some dead beloved. So it is the sad songs that always attract us. So even our sweetest songs are those that talk about saddest thoughts. So that is one problem with human beings, and this idea is not just Shelley's. Almost all poets have at some time or the other spoken about this particular trait of human beings, to always worry about, regret the past and be anxious for the future and forget to enjoy the present. And even though we read all these poems, we listen to all these, we will continue to do the same mistake again till the day we die. Yet if we could scorn hate, pride and fear, if we were things born not to shed a tear, I know not how thy joy we should ever come near. And then he hopes, even if we did not have, if we could scorn, we could avoid, or we could kind of reject hatred, pride and fear, and if we were things born to experience happiness alone, if we were things born not to shed a tear, so even if happiness alone was given to them, given to us human beings, even then I doubt whether we can reach that scale of happiness where you stand. Better than all measures of delightful sound, better than all treasures that in books are found, thy skill to poet were, thou scorner of the ground. So he says that for a poet, the greatest treasure would be your skill. If only a poet, that is, he might be talking about himself, if only I could learn the secret of your skill. He calls the bird the scorner of the ground. Why? Because the bird doesn't come down at all. It's always in the sky. That is why he is calling the bird as the scorner of the ground. And he says that better than all measures of delightful sound. All measures here means notes of music. So what a poet really needs, more than listening to good music or more than all the treasures that he can find in a book. We know that books and what you read inspires poets. The stories that you hear inspires you. A musical note. You hear, for instance, this particular poem was inspired by the music of a bird. So all these things inspire a poet, but beyond all that, what the poet, the greatest gift, the greatest treasure that a poet can find would be your skill. If only I could know what makes you sing so blissfully, I would be blessed. So that's what he's saying there. And now in the last stanza, stanza 21, he says, Teach me half the gladness that thy brain must know. Such harmonious madness from my lips would flow. The world should listen then as I am listening now. So he says, I am not asking for too much. I am not telling me to give you all your talent. Just teach me half of what you know. Give me half of your happiness. So if the bird teaches him how to at least be half as happy as it is, then he says, then I would create such harmonious madness that the world would listen then as I am listening now. So if I had half your talent, if I could experience half the joy that you are experiencing, I can create such wonderful poetry. That is what he means by harmonious madness. Such harmonious madness from my lips would flow that the world would stand still. They would forget everything else. They would stand still and listen to me. Shelley ends the poem with a request to the bird, the skylark, to impart the secret of his joy. He need not divulge the full secret, but at least give me half your joy, he says, so that the world would listen to me like I am listening to you now. So that is how the poem ends. Now this poem is not about a certain bird. It's not just about a bird called the skylark, but more than that, it is about the quest for perfection. It is an attempt to catch hold of something that is so elusive, ethereal. He is talking about poetic inspiration, which is the greatest treasure for a poet. Because without this divine inspiration, a poet cannot write wonderful poems. And so that is exactly why he is kind of imploring the skylark to teach him the secret of its joy. And Shelley is believed to have been inspired in his ideas by Plato's work called Phaedrus. He had read that a few years back in the Plato's book called Phaedrus. In that book, Plato has mentioned, I'll just read a sentence from there. Muse's madness is a must. Self-controlled verse will be eclipsed by the poetry of men who have been driven out of their minds. Okay, so that is what Shelley too believed, I guess. He wanted to be a poet who has been driven out of his mind. He wanted to enjoy the ecstasy that no other poet had experienced before him, the unprecedented joy that could inspire great works of art. Even in the poem Kubla Khan, written by Coleridge, you come across a poet who had glowing, brilliant, burning eyes, and a person who the others would keep away from. That poet too is very similar to this idea of a poet mentioned in Plato's Phaedrus. A poet who is ablaze with ideas and imagination. A person who the world would look upon with respectful dread. So that is what Shelley aims at, and that is what he wants to become. So here the bird symbolizes perfection, for which Shelley is looking for. And another thing to tell you about this poem is that it abounds in similes, and for the exams usually you are asked the question, write about the similes used in this poem. You have any number of some almost 8 to 9 similes you have in this poem, such beautiful ones. So the beauty of this poem is amazing, and that is one reason why this poem continues to be in the list of classics. It is evergreen in its popularity. Though it was written so many years ago, it still continues. That is, it was written in 1820, but it still continues to attract readers. And I'm very happy that I could share my views on this poem with you today.